Um, so this morning I want to read a short story that I got so many lessons out of in Second Kings 4:3-7. Um, and it says, and Elisha said, borrow as many empty jars as you can from your friends and neighbors. Then go into your house with your sons and shut the door behind you. Pour olive oil from your flask into the jars, setting each one aside when it is filled. So she did as she was told. Her sons kept bringing jars to her, and she filled one after another. Soon every container was filled to the brim. Bring me another jar, she said to one of her sons. There aren't any more, he told her, and then the olive oil stopped flowing. When she told the man of God what had happened, he said to her, now sell the olive oil and pay your debts, and you and your sons can live on what is left over. And today, I'm just grateful for God's blessings. I'm grateful for I'm grateful for just everything God gives us and the way in which He gives it to us and obedience behind it. This story, I just woke up like maybe around 4 a.m. and opened up my Bible to this particular book of Kings, and it was like this. So many parts of this story just hit me like a ton of bricks because I was just putting my mind in the frame of actually being in those days and times, and it's it's so amazing how your blessings come, and you receive your blessings with the help of others, but who you are and your integrity really has a lot to do with the way God blesses you. Like with this lady in particular, right? Elisha instructed her to go and borrow as many empty jars as she could find from her friends and neighbors. And you could only imagine in those times when resources were limited, right? Like it wasn't like now, like where we could just go out there and just buy something or just get a jar or something to put in. Like people had to give us something that they actually use, you know, and they had to give us something that probably meant a lot to them. And it made me think about what type of person she was. Like, even though she was running out, and she might have been going through some hard times, she had to have been a good person. Because if she wasn't a good person, no one would have lent her nothing. If she was a mean person or a person without integrity or just a bad, mean spirited person, like people wouldn't have given her the jars that she would have needed to receive her blessing, you know? And another thing which struck me in this is when she got her instructions, which she was obedient to, she was instructed to go inside her house and shut the door behind her. Sometimes when God is about to bless us, we have to separate ourselves from things. We have to go into either our quiet place or we have to go into some places that may seem unconventional and we have to shut the door behind us, because God didn't instruct to give our blessings publicly. Like there's many instances in the Bible where, Jesus would have blessed people or people would have gotten their blessings in front of others so that they could have carried the word on. But this particular blessing for her required her to be by herself and for her to be in an alone place and for her to be somewhere where nobody knew how much oil she was going to get. Nobody knew, like, they may know that she may have borrowed a job, but they don't know what she borrowed it for. It could have been for water, it could have been for anything. But her jar was supposed to be filled with oil, which obviously was extremely valuable commodity back in those days because oil was used, not only just for maybe fires and whatever, but it was used in everything from cooking. It was used to keep the flies off of your pets. You know what I mean, so that they could live and so that you could be able to like rebreed and so that you could just have anything in abundance. Like oil was extremely valuable commodity back then, and she was given this blessing um in private, and it made me start to think a lot too about my life and how when I went through a transition, how I had to separate myself from so many people that, you know, at that moment in time, especially, I thought that these people meant my best interest or not. Maybe some of them did, but I still had to separate myself in order to get where I am today, and she was obedient, because she didn't leave the door halfway cracked for people to peek inside or nothing. She literally went inside and she followed the instructions and she closed the doors. And one of the last things that I got out of this was when she asked for more, her sons told her that there weren't any more jars. Her blessings were still overflowing, but God gave her exactly what she had acquired and filled it to the brim. It gave her the opportunity then to have more than enough. And he didn't tell her to return the jars back to the people full. He said to sell what that is, pay off your debts, and then you and your sons could live as what's left over. That meaning that her blessing still ended up blessing other people because that oil was such a valuable commodity that she had to go out there and she had to sell it, but it still created intricate value throughout or for whoever it was in the neighborhood or the community or whatever. And she had to remain within her integrity because she could have gone ahead and say, I can keep these jars or I could do whatever, but she had to still go ahead and sell those jars and then keep what was left over. And to me, like I said again, this story just reminded me of how important it is to just walk through life with integrity, and not only that, be obedient in our instructions from God, because our blessings can come. I'm sure that she could have never imagined that she would have that when she woke up that morning, that she would have ended up with what she ended up at the end of that day. Some days we don't know where the next drop coming from. We don't know where the next dollar coming from. But sometimes we have to reach out to people. We have to go out there and we have to like remove that shame because that shame ain't from God and He's give us instructions and we have to be obedient to it. Sometimes our blessings are directly aligned to the people who are closest to us. They are directly aligned to the people who we've been good to. And it allows them to have an opportunity for God to allow to work through them to be good to us. Because God definitely worked around all the people in this particular story. It had those people who lent her the jars had to have God in them because they was the main people. But imagine the people who didn't lend her jars. Imagine the people who said to themselves, "Oh, but I ain't giving this woman my only jar." They would have ended up with probably a half a jar of oil for themselves. So my message today is three things. One, to be obedient to God and listen to Him when He gives you instructions. Number two is to don't shut the world out when God asks you or puts you in a position to receive your blessing. Remember, your blessing may be directly aligned with somebody else. And the third thing I want to remind everyone is to shut the door behind you. Sometimes you have to cut those people off who don't mean you no good or who didn't who aren't directly aligned with your blessings. But just be obedient to His word and just shut that door. I'm Gary and I relinquish my mic.